you're going to see me in a minute.
Okay.
So in other words, my mic on my laptop isn't working. So I call in. Let's see. Let me get the video.
I have.
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay.
And is text to Debbie?
That's me.
If you can just change yourself,
I can what?
change the name of your display, just so we have.
Just with a name? Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
There we go.
Thank you.
I thought tax 2 was sort of clever.
Have we heard from Ed at all? I'm just scanning email. Joyce, you haven't heard anything from him, right?
I did not know.
We'll wait one more minute and then we'll get started. Okay, we'll get started in the interest of everyone's time. Calling the meeting to order at 1:06. You got that, Joyce?
Yes.
So the deceivingly short agenda. We'll go right into budget. So the process will be, we're going to focus on the departments, and we'll just start on page 1. So the first department is Registrar of Voters, and I see Karen, you're on. I know that your budget that you submitted, you and Barbara did some work on that, which is not reflected in the current copy that we are looking at, dated 2/19/2021. And I'm assuming Barbara's in transit from Cornwall to here, so she'll probably join us shortly. Can you just give us a very, very brief overview of any what changes that you talked about with her? You're on mute. You're on mute. Karen, you need to unmute yourself.
Well, oh, there it goes. All right. I think you have to do it. Because I can't hear very well, so just so you, I've turned the volume up as high as it'll go. So
Okay.
But I think the biggest increase probably was in the training and the conferences. Partly that was because we just moved some numbers around. Rather than trying to put our $35 a day that we get for going to a conference into our pay, what we get paid, we put it into the cost of the conference.
You have in your training number now.
in my training right now, because we have a new.
No, in the
registrar-
proposal for 21-22.
Pardon?
In the proposal for 21-22.
I don't even have that. Yeah, this is a
Ask if
21.
They can skip back to you when I get up to speed.
When the training is because we have, it has gone up because we have a new registrar who has to take his 8 classes with the state of Connecticut, through the state of Connecticut's registrar training program. And as of to date, he hasn't taken any of them. So we put the full amount of his training into next year, which he has to complete them all by the second year of his being in office. Oh, well, and then apparently Barbara's just telling me that she changed it and we don't have that. I don't have that.
Oh, hi, Barbara.
I'm trying to get on. If you
I'm
could
sorry.
if you could skip back to this department and let me get caught up.
Yep, absolutely. So we're gonna go to assessor and which is page 2, Chris and everyone, starting on page 1 on line 125. And this was the budget was submitted by Patty prior to her retiring, and it's at a 0% increase. So I'm going to say that we can keep moving along, unless Chris, you've got anything, any questions or anything. I'm going to call that a no. Debbie, tax collector. Really, the only area that this is going up is in your data processing, which is, you go ahead. You have-
No, that's fine. I'm not sure whether the paperwork, you should have the paperwork. If not, I can easily give it to you. It's all documented.
Yep.
And as far as explaining it, I don't really explain it very well, but it seems to be working.
So it's a small increase in the cost of you moving over to the cloud services of your.
Well, this has nothing to do with the cloud services. That's
Okay,
a separate bill.
Okay.
This is just the ongoing. I think part of it is this past year, there has been, as you know, a lot of executive orders from the governor that have to be translated to the tax department as far as interest and timing and all of that. Quality has been wonderful about really researching that, making sure it works, and all I have to do is just kind of tie into it and it's done. So they do a lot of work behind the scenes to make it all come together.
So which of, when we're looking at the budget letter, so there's an 8311 grand total. And then there's another page with 3250. That's the entire 11,562, correct?
Yeah, pretty sure I added them up correctly.
And so this is for, there's
It's for
some
the
software
printing.
fees, there's the printing and processing of all the bills, there's the rate book that they generate.
It's mailing out the July billing. They do all of that because it's actually cheaper. They stuff them and mail them. It also includes, if we want to put in a one-sheet letter from the town or from the office, that's included in the price. So that's the 11.5.
And where it says software services, annual software support fee, revenue collection software, search tech records, web hosting service, hardware maintenance plan, or an Epson validator.
Yep, all of those, that's software and hardware.
Yep. And so what does that software do?
It takes all of the data from the assessors and makes it into tax bills, would be the simplest way to put it. And then once it's a tax bill, it also accounts for the money that comes in. So I can give Barbara a nice little neat report.
Chris, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just, they're not huge lines, but postage seems to be going up. And
Yes,
You know.
it does.
I don't know, is just,
We send out delinquent notices every month.
okay,
That varies from month to month, obviously, but
Okay.
when you start with 5,000 bills, if you only send 1%, that's still 500. So
Mhm.
on
Yeah,
a
I got it.
monthly basis.
Yeah, just, some years we haven't spent some money and some years I guess we have, but it's not a significant increase in my opinion. And then just the conferences and not so much questioning the expense, but are you planning to go to them or are they Zooming or how's that working?
They, at the moment, they're Zooming. OPM, finally, tax collectors have been trying for years and years and years to make recertification a necessity,
Mm-hmm.
not just an option. And OPM finally said yes to that. Well, that means I have to hustle and get my 50 credits so that I can become recertified. And so those are courses I'm taking now.
Gotcha.
Is that
Sorry.
annual?
No,
Sorry,
it's every 5 years. But because I was certified so many years ago, I'm in the first group to be recertified.
Can you get your shot at the same time?
Next Monday, I get my second shot. I'm good.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, Chris.
Just briefly going back to the postage, is there any option to move some people to electronic delivery of their tax bills, or do they have to be printed out on a piece of paper and sent in an envelope?
If people want to give me their emails, I will be happy to do that. So far, no one has come forward with that. But certainly, if somebody wants to email me give me their email address, I will send them a monthly bill, because the monthly people are kind of the monthly people.
And so is it possible to have the vendor transition to an electronic delivery?
Oh, no. For the bills that go out in July,
Mhm.
there's nothing in the works now for that, as far as I'm aware. People actually get a piece of paper. It's a 3-part bill. It's part of the process. No, I'm not aware of anything changing. This would be for the monthly billing. I could scan it and, I could send it by email if people.
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking it's, the whole printing out a piece of paper to scan it and email.
Postage, because Quality does it and they do it in the bulk rate, and we get a pretty good deal on it. We're not spending 55 cents, it is less.
Even
I guess to Jean's point, Debbie, and it's not,
Yes.
it's just not in your department. I think the concept is from a statutory point of view, 1, and 2, from a logistical standpoint. When do we all transfer snail mail to actual digital mail? And
I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, I'm not saying that. It's just
Yeah, no.
you're now sort of the example of that process. So it would be good to know in your updated educational stream as to what what tax collectors are doing statewide as to how they're collecting, if they're collecting, and if it's allowed to be collected online. And I would say that that probably transfers to all departments. But again, it's a small component of our budget. It's just something of interest to jump on.
Okay, I will ask around.
Thanks. Moving along. Tax collector, Darlene.
Tax,
I'm sorry, town clerk.
wow, that threw me.
Darlene, you're up.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
Hello.
Go ahead, Chris.
I just haven't seen, there's nothing that's radically different. I think we went over this last meeting. Again, one of the departments where over time, if you look at the budget, it seems to be working in a manner of trying to, find the right balance, and year in and year out, it's not so easy. But only thing is record maintenance. And is that an increase? Is that sort of a fixed price, Darlene? Or
It's the staying flat of 12,000. It's a fixed monthly contract with our
Yep.
provider.
okay, that's what I assumed.
And the increase over fiscal 19 is just normal. Their costs passing along, et cetera, et cetera.
Actually, the actual amount, it was probably budgeted in 19 and 20 for 12,000 also. Just knowing that the contracts, and depending on what other volume is going to affect sometimes my monthly billing. So it is budgeted for 12. The actual amount spent for that year was the 10.2.
Okay. And then as far as record maintenance, what records is it? It's a piece of software, correct?
Yes, yep. That's IQS. That's my main software program that operates my land record system.
And that is an internet based, or it's installed on your computer or on the server?
Well, it's actually both in sense of that it is installed, it's backed up via internet, it's public, the public search terminal is internet based. So
And when you access the IQS software, are you going just over in a browser and logging in for your side of what you do?
I'm actually thinking that I'm going through the server.
Okay.
So
And do you know if there's a web service available for that?
I don't.
Okay.
If it's something that you're asking us to look into, I'd be more than glad to.
Yeah, I think it's worth the question as other data sets move to the cloud and we rely less on that server that's in the building. I think it's worth having the conversation with them for sure.
Okay.
Super. And dues and conferences, your conferences are still looking to be Zoom?
They didn't hold one in the fall, but they are going to hold one this spring via Zoom. So just keeping the same budget line flat, hoping that possibly this fall that means that we may be attending, but who knows? So
Okay, great. Anything else, Chris?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, and Barbara's ready, so if we
Thank
want
you, Dar.
to
Sure.
ROV. Yeah, thanks, Darlene. Whenever you're ready, Barbara.
Sorry, I
That's okay.
couldn't hear you, and because Karen is on, I don't know if you can hear that.
A nice echo.
Yeah, not sure how to address that.
Pardon? You want me to turn it down?
Turn your volume.
Yeah,
Then I can't hear it.
That's okay.
Okay. Is that better?
Is that better, everybody?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so what am I addressing?
I just wanted to go over the registrars because I know there were some, you guys.
Okay, so the way their budget is now, it's coming in actually at 6.15% increase, and only, hold on, Karen, you've got to turn it off.
Let me turn it off. Okay.
Okay. The only increase for them is their training line, and that's because one of the registrars is new and he has 2 years to get certified. So we've budgeted the proper amount of money in each year for him to get certified. That will sort of force him to get certified within the 2 years instead of trying to hold off and get all certified in the last year, because that's not fair to the taxpayers of the town to budget money, have it not be used, and then have to budget more money because an employee was not following through on what their responsibilities were. So there's $1,500 in their training line. All of their other lines are flat with the exception of payroll, which has the 2% increase in it. And their supply line actually went down by $225. So now that's only $6,000. And that will facilitate them doing their house-to-house canvas that they want to do and all the additional training that they expect that they have to do. So their total bottom line right now is 34,056.
Great. Thank you. And Karen, can you hear me okay? You're on mute, but I'm gonna assume you are. The postage, you have at 500, and for the canvas, is that where, do you feel like that's enough postage to do the canvas because you're doing a mailing canvas, or?
You unmute me?
We can hear you on Barbara's computer,
Oh, okay.
so it's totally fine.
Every time we register somebody or change anything in their registration, we have to send them a letter, which has to go by first-class mail.
Yep.
So that $500 covers all of those. I mean, last year we did 692 transactions that required somebody to get a letter from us.
As far as the canvas, though, you're doing.
The canvas, we send out probably 100 and some odd letters.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Canvas. Plus, we have to send them a return address letter that's stamped and has return postage on it.
Okay. I thought it was much larger than that. Got it.
I mean, it depends. Right now, we have a much longer list than we normally have because we had all the returns that came back from the primary. And we have the ERIC list, which is coming back from 10 different states.
Yep.
And we have the regular list that we get from the post office, which we finally got it all combined, so we know who. But it's going to be over 100 people that will get canvassed.
Okay.
It varies from year to year, but next year the plan was to actually send people house to house, so we have a completed, accurate canvas. And those people that we can't actually go to their houses, we would call. We had planned on doing it this year, or last year, but COVID got in the way, and certainly we can't do it this spring because we're still under restrictions. And the canvas has to be done between January 1st and May 1st. That's by statute. We don't have any choice on that.
Okay.
By statute, it's supposed to be a house-to-house canvas, but they have modified the statute so we can also use phone, or we can use the what's called the NCOA from the post office, which is a list of people who've moved or changed addresses or whatever. We need to verify to make sure that every voter has the correct address and that they're actually still living here. So that we can, when they're voting, we have our list is as up to date as we can possibly make it.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thanks. Any questions, Chris?
I do not have any.
Okay. Thanks, Karen. And if folks need to get on with their day when they're finished with their category or their department, by all means,
Oops, what happened?
we're not holding anybody to stay. Planning and zoning, Don, Lynn.
I don't want to imagine wondering. I want to go back to the meeting.
And if you can just put yourself back on mute, that would be great.
I'm going to go now. I have an appointment I have to go to. So
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks for coming. Alrighty.
What are those things? I'll remember in a minute. The memory cards back to. Because I had 8 of them I had to send. They loaned us.
Donna and Lynn, I think Matt dropped off.
No, Matt's down. Matt's on.
Oh, there you are, right in the middle.
So let's let Matt start with P and Z,
Sure.
and I'll pick up with wetlands.
That's great. And, as usual, I'll defer to Donna for the nuts and bolts. I expect that you guys will have a couple of questions that I can answer. But Donna, would you mind going through the budget?
Donna, you're on mute.
Not on mute, but just really low.
A new setting. Quiet. Murmur.
Movie theater.
So there are two components. Let me jump in if I may. One is the salary issue, which we can discuss secondarily. I think primarily the first question that I have has to do with the need for help me here, workbooks, something books,
Chromebooks.
Right.
Chromebooks.
I can
Thank you.
address.
And what's the need for it?
I don't know why they can't hear me. Can you
Oh,
hear
now
me
we
now?
can.
We can start hearing now.
Okay. I switched it on the system. Thanks, Doug. Thank you. Yeah, okay, so the increase in the line for the supplies is for the anticipated purchase of some Chromebooks for all of my commissions, for inland wetlands, for planning and zoning, ZBA, and I think the ARB doesn't have a budget, but they would also be recipients of that as well. I'm trying to find a way that's a little bit more efficient for us to transmit any kind of information to my commission members. The best way of doing that, I believe, is through Chromebooks. It gives them the ability to use that one computer for any kind of land use, P&Z, inland wetland work. I have gotten to the point now where I have a shareable public folder that all of my meeting scans go into. But my other main concern with providing the Chromebooks is that this is a machine that we've dedicated just to their volunteer work. And if we have a forensic review of computers based on an FOI request, which we are in the middle of right now, then their personal property, the personal information would not be scrutinized if they had to provide their own personal computers. They would just need to go ahead and give us the Chromebook. The Chromebook would go to the forensic people. They would look to see whatever documentation is in there with the particular case, and everybody's protected. And I don't have to worry about my volunteers getting information outside that they don't want to have outside. So that's the reason for that.
And I'll jump in too a little bit. the way we're running our meetings now is, as I think most people are, is we're meeting via Zoom. So all of the documents for P&Z, and I'm sure it's the same for the other land use commissions, have to come through email. So they're all electronic, and the most efficient way, certainly for me to do it, is to download that information to my machine. That way I can as I run the meeting, I can pull them up from my machine. I could always go back and delete them, but I often, before the meeting, I mark up the PDFs. So I like to keep those as a record for if I need to go back. And certainly when we have applicants that are spanning over 2 or 3 or 4 meetings, it's nice to go back and review the notes from before. And that becomes a record for me. So it would be nicer, certainly, and I think less fraught legally, for me at least, to have that information on a dedicated machine.
And I would second that.
So email just doesn't work, a dedicated email to, Matt at zoning, Kent zoning, doesn't work?
That's how I have been doing it, but what happens is I have now graduated into a 3-page agenda. So with all of the size of the documents that are being emailed, I end up, for one inland wetlands meeting, I ended up sending each commissioner 3 or 4 separate emails so that I don't overshoot the amount of space that I'm using as I send it. Giving them the ability to access a public file, I don't have to email any of that stuff. They just have the right to enter a public folder and see all the information that's there. And then they can download it at that point in time, like Matt does, and it would be downloaded onto the Chromebook and not downloaded onto their personal computers.
Right.
Okay.
Oh,
Chris, it becomes more efficient to in the meetings themselves. So if I'm opening up, or we're opening up documents from a saved onto a machine, they open up very much more quickly than if you're opening them up not in their native format in a Google Docs.
Well, everything should be sent via, converted into a PDF. I can't.
It is.
So that
But
would be the most
But for
compressed file
Let me
type.
just say, I have an old computer that I'm working on from home remotely, and PDFs can be problematic depending on how they were saved for me to open it up. And I have to use this old computer because it has a camera, and my new computer doesn't. So this way that Don is proposing is just cleaner and easier for everybody depending on their own individual circumstance. I would be very hard pressed to have to turn my computer over. I would not. That would be very difficult for me to do my job personally. So I again like the idea of having everything in one place going forward. I know there'll be a transition time, but I support the idea of being able to provide everything in one place too, especially in response to a FOIA request, but also for my own ease in accessing documents and being able to read them.
So I understand the FOI or the if you're downloading it, but why are we downloading anything? Why shouldn't it be cloud-based, whereby everybody goes to a spot which would be FOIable, and if you're using the town email system, FOIable, and outside of your Outlook or Gmail or whatever else you use, I guess I understand the convenience, if you will, of downloading it onto a machine, but in my way of thinking, as even just as a public person in any of these meetings, it would be nice to walk in, see a screen on the wall that everybody's looking at, that everybody's working off of, that everyone can tie into if you want to use your mobile phone in the audience or as an individual on a board. To me, that makes it's a little cleaner and not, sort of notebooks floating around there. Not that I'm against it. I'm just questioning as to why a cloud-based process wouldn't be easier.
Yeah, and
there must be P&Z designed programs out there as well, I would think.
Chris, one of the other issues is only right now, none of the commission members across the board, P&Z, conservation, any of them are utilizing a town of Kent domain email address. So under FOIA, their personal emails would all be subject to inspection and search anyway. So it's not, you're solving a tiny part of the problem, because the genesis of those documents are likely coming based on email conversations or email discussions that are happening. And I think that there are ways, we can use our website where the P&Z could have a members side of the website where they can access a whole environment where they're going out onto a restricted area for P&Z, where you can have lots and lots of document storage, and all that it stays there. So you're not downloading and uploading and everybody making sure that they have the correct version of a document. And it's a one and done where I think there's a lot of options for moving to this, to an electronic digital platform. The other side of this is every indication that we've gotten from the governor is he's going to let these executive orders expire on the 19th of April. He's getting a ton of pressure to move us out of the sort of landscape of this emergency declaration, a lot of legislative pressure, and we're going to see going back to the option and the availability to go back to in-person congregation and in-person meetings. But I think that you guys are headed in the right direction. A few of my concerns about having 25 pieces of hardware out in the community are a big cybersecurity concern. David and I spent a lot of time talking to CISA about our cybersecurity footprint and where we are. Things like who's going to troubleshoot, who's going to be responsible for troubleshooting the hardware, because no matter what hardware you put out there, there's going to be, you have these varying levels of acumen. And so who's going to be that troubleshooter? Who's going to be the help desk for 25 pieces of hardware? Asset tracking, as far as those are assets of the town. So we would have to make sure that they're tracked and they get cybersecurity updates. And providing a case is probably, would probably need to be considered. And if we add, if you were to put every commission member onto the Town of Kent domain using a Town of Kent email address, that's another, it's like $2,700. So I think there's other costs that we might want to pull in the IT vendor to talk about a project. And I think this is a big, government-wide way that we need to discuss and really lean into. Yeah, I keep, with all.
Ask the question of just sort of the function during your meetings. Is it more beneficial to have it all in front of you as individuals, or would it save the same would it achieve the same goal for you if it were just broadcast on like a large screen?
Personally, I like to be able to look at the information in front of me so that I can ask the questions that I have. So it's like GoToMeeting. When somebody's running the meeting for you, you're not able to actually advance forward or look back to double check information. That can be frustrating. But I hear what Jean is saying about different alternatives that might cost a little bit less and might be easier to implement. Did I understand you correctly that that FOIA makes your email address subject, not just the machinery? Yeah, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's why we would encourage everybody on every commission, board, whatever. I mean, I strictly use the town Gmail for anything. And in fact, I've been reached out to on my Bain real estate account by people, and I just send back, please send information to. You have to be disciplined at it, but it's really a way to just so whatever's in your rest of your world is not investigated. But again, I don't even care if it's more money. If the alternative makes a little bit more sense from a operational point of view, I like the idea. I think it's a great idea to make sure that everybody's consistently on the same page and has everything. I think Donna brings up a good process, but I don't know if it's the best process, and it would be good to investigate that, I think. And I shouldn't even say that. Donna, have you looked into that sort of the sort of not opposite, but sort of a complementary kind of process?
I don't know what other complementary process.
So you can get a spot on anywhere on your server, in the cloud, anywhere where you could specifically have, just for planning and zoning, your documents that are all dropped there, and everybody knows what that is.
That's what I just did.
But instead of using the hardware, anybody can use any hardware.
They can, without a doubt. I mean, and that's what they're doing now. I mean, everything that I send out for a meeting at this point in time goes out via an email. I don't do hard copies of anything. So they are actually looking at that email that I have sent out. I get, maybe I'm missing the point, but.
So you send an email out to your commissions, and that email has what? Attachments like PDFs and things like that?
Not like, but they have PDFs.
Okay, so if you just had
Wait a minute,
link.
Chris, before you go on, Donna has implemented the last meeting, and for this meeting coming up, she's got a spot now on, I'm going to call it in the cloud. Or
Google.
Just like you just described, she's got a spot where we can all go.
Google Drive, right?
Information.
So okay, that's great. And then the next question is, how do you all access it? And if
I gave, as the creator of that public file, I gave them access to be viewers.
Gotcha.
But I do want to, and I've been asking IT to step forward to go one step further. If you go onto the Town of Kent's website and you pull up the Kent Center School Board of Education agenda, you can click on any one of their links, and you don't need to have permission, and you can view that document. So then that allows anybody who's interested in that budget to participate. Right now, I don't have that ability for some reason. When I updated who I extended permission to yesterday for my planning and zoning meeting for Thursday night, someone showed up that I don't know who was, something called admin. I don't know who that is. I don't know how they gained access to get into my file, but they did, but I deleted them. So they're gone. I don't know who that was. So now my guys, I give them approval to go into that public meeting file. But I want to take it one step further so that if the applicant wants to participate, if it's general public access, then he can get in there as well just by looking at the link on the town's website. It would also eliminate the need for Darlene to copy. Well, I give her copies, but she uploads all of the attachments onto the town's website to run consecutively with the agenda. It would eliminate that need, but I can't for some reason get to that next step. I'm not there yet. I'm halfway there. I need to go that next step so that the general public, the Matt Stars of the world, can actually come in anytime they want to and look at any file that we are talking about. And we are now totally FOI compliant with everybody having access to everything. It's transparent. There's no question whatsoever what we will be discussing at any of our meetings.
The website is the place that those files should be available as the hub for the town government. And there are products through Civic Plus that enable much more interactivity that I've been looking at a couple of months for meetings and make things much more easily available, that I think that you would really like. The user interface is very friendly. It's very sort of customer experience oriented. And I think it sounds like that would be a good solution for this. I think parsing out public files, files that are supposed to be available to the public, having the public need to go to two different places to access.
They wouldn't though. They would just go to the town's website and they would then just find the information there. So that link, or they would pull up the agenda, and the agenda would have a link to each one of those documents, and they just need the agenda. They pull up the agenda's live on their screen, they click on it, it brings you right into wherever the document is located.
But you can do that right now with a document that you upload to the website.
So may I ask an internal question? When departments are challenged with, trying to do something as Donna has tried to take on this journey, Donna, what is your process in which you get this done? Do you contact the IT person? And then, so when you say it's halfway done, is it that it's not that their job's halfway done, it just hasn't answered it yet? Or is he in the process of doing that for you?
I spoke to him last week and said, thank you very much for giving me the ability to do what I did, but I wanted right from the very beginning to go one step further. And he said, oh, I will look into that and get back to you tomorrow morning. And I have not heard from him since, and I had spoken to him last Wednesday. So, so for the time being, for the planning and zoning meeting, I'm doing I created the public meeting folder and then opened that up and gave the permission to the people. But still, the general public doesn't have that information. That's now sitting on the website.
You're working towards that, and I appreciate that.
Right.
My question then switches back to the money and the hardware. So to me, it sounds like it's more of a software issue, and I would think we could spend, if it's the same amount of money, I don't care, but that money to achieve that. In fact, I would say it should be in almost every department. It should be the same system across the board. Anything that is public, we should all have the same systems. And so, Jean, I think it's beholden on us to make sure that whatever that process is, it's all public documents, and everybody should be able to get in there, in and out.
In the same way with the same vehicle.
Right. So, so talk to me a little bit about your desire then on the hardware, because that's where I'm having the challenge is I think everybody can get through in their own hardware, whether it's a tablet, whether it's whatever they use, as long as the system that you're thinking about, Donna, is available. But you guys are commission members, and talk to us about, really how much it really is required to have a Chromebook.
Well, I'm trying to understand if the solution that Donna is getting to, and I wanted to clarify that with Donna, if that would actually eliminate the need for the Chromebooks.
I think if we're going to be going back to in-person meetings, having the ability for you to come to a meeting with a Chromebook in your hand, and instead of a folder or an envelope that weighs 2 or 3 pounds of documentation, which is what you bring now to a planning and zoning and an inland wetlands meeting so that you have everything in front of you, you would then just be bringing your Chromebook. If you don't have the Chromebook, then I've got to figure out who needs hard copies, or you're going to have to bring your own personal hardware with you, which in your case you can't. And I believe that there are others in the same boat where they're working off of their own hardware, their own, desktops, laptops that everybody, Johnny Smith is using for his homework. So by having a Chromebook in front of you, you would then bring that to the meeting with all of the information ready to look at instead of the hard copies all over the tables. So personally, I think it's it will save money in postage because I don't have to mail out anything. And you have the device that you need in order to participate in the meeting with all of the backup information that you need to make a decision.
Yeah, we're probably not talking about all of that backup information because, you know, with us, there's always some large format plans that are easier to look at in paper when there's, you know, 3x5 or 2x3 plan size. So the Chromebook will be a little bit limiting. But if all of those documents are, if their native format is electronic, then you can always zoom into them. If the native format is a paper document that gets scanned in, and then the zooming in on the scan doesn't always work well. But
we
as
could
we
require,
move further into the electronic, the native electronic, I think that'll be easier.
we could always require anybody that's presenting anything on a 24x36 sheet of paper to understand that they're going to be putting that up, you know, on an easel and presenting it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I recently at my office purchased a 55-inch iPad, for lack of a better term, and I stuck it on the wall. And it is unbelievably convenient because basically I can go to any website, I can have people send documents or anything there, and everybody, the common group can see it. So I don't see, personally, I don't see, and I'm speaking just for myself, but I have so much hardware to bring. I can bring an iPad, I can bring a cell phone, I can bring a laptop. So I think most people are in a position to bring some sort of hardware. And really what it comes down to is your access.
I don't think that's an assumption. I really don't.
You don't what, I'm sorry?
I don't think that's a good assumption. Some people are well equipped like you and some people are not.
Then there can be, as there are in my office here, there are 3 dummy stations, meaning they're just simple, easy laptops that are sitting there available for anybody to grab and get online and do things. So like I said, I'm sorry if I presume that, but the world is flooded with machines, and I think that, to me, it just seems simpler to have something that's a little bit more egalitarian, a little bit more open to the public, one on the wall, and 2, easy, you know, a web-based access to me is the smartest and the move that everyone's gone to.
yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem using the website as long as I have access to make sure that everything is posted according to state statute. Because the last thing that I'm going to do is be put in a position where an application is denied and then we end up in court because it was not posted according to the state statute. That I'm sorry, you know, you can call me whatever you want, but there's no way that any of my information is going to be put up on the website unless I have control over it, because I'm not going to be responsible for violating state statute and having a lawsuit brought against the town. So
I don't think
Well,
any,
We weren't suggesting that, but
okay,
Yeah,
but
I don't think
you know, I
anybody
mean, there's
is even thinking. I mean, I don't think, I know that nobody thinks that or makes any sort of assumption. I mean, we're all here to follow FOI. We're all here to make
okay.
information transparent where it should be transparent, which is under FOI, you're required to make it public. It should just be public.
It should be, but it should be public in a certain period of time. So,
But
but anyway,
Well,
I mean, it's up to you guys.
I'm sure about
Whatever
that
you'd like to do. If you want to take it out, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. You know, it was a suggestion. We were asked to try to make ourselves a little bit more going, you know, more forward technology wise. So this was an idea that I came up with. If nobody likes it, then, you know, we can take it out.
It's not that nobody, I don't think either Chris nor I have an emotional opinion about it. I think that the idea is great and it's, you know, we're all overdue to digitize our world here in Kent. And I think that there are some global solutions that if we can do a little bit of homework and get some demos in and show you what these products are that they can offer, I think you'll be happy to have waited. And you know, the world's population, I think it's like 72 or 78% of the world's population has a mobile device. And mobile, you know, devices are a very personal preference. And I would not be inclined to use a Chromebook because there are a lot of limitations in a Chromebook. I know there's people on the call who are Apple devotees and Dell devotees. And when you start pushing people away from what works for them from a tactile standpoint, it creates a different sort of barrier. And if we're able to do this in a way that is good for everybody, I think it's a win-win. So if you can give us a little time, and I can do some homework, and we can, you know, maybe form some
Well,
sort
I also just want to say that, Donna, I personally, and I think all of us, appreciate your creativity, and that makes sense. I've seen for years people struggling with like fold outs and like turning them and twisting them and having them and big binders. And so to that order, you know, bravo. I think really the only thing in question here is not so much the solving the problem, is how to solve the problem. And what I would like to hear, well, we've heard from you, Donna, that this solves a problem for you because you've got consistency. What I really need to hear is from Matt and from Lynn as to how much you're going to advocate that you need this hardware machines, or do you think we can find a solvable workaround whereby even if it's a matter of buying 2 or 3 Chromebooks that sit in office meetings where people can pick them up and use them if they don't seem to have some sort of hardware to access. But I think we're all looking to solve the problem. We've got like about, did I count up about 10 grand worth of problem to solve that problem? Can we do it for less? What do you guys think? Lynn?
I guess I would say if we can solve this by getting the information online, and I can at my leisure access the information and look at it and understand what I'm looking at before I go into that meeting, I think that makes good sense. I would also say that as you're thinking about long-term, I do not foresee the Wetlands Commission moving to personal meetings April whatever, unless everybody on the commission has been vaccinated and everybody who comes into that room has been vaccinated.
they're not gonna turn to in-person meetings on April 19th, but that certainly is going to be the start to getting back to in-person. Like it's not a hard one at 12:01 on the 19th. So
right.
That's the worry.
But one thing to consider is to outfit that conference room with something that enables people to participate remotely, regardless, because we found we had to change our bylaws to allow people to participate by phone because we needed quorum for decision making, and it's worked out well. So I just add that thought.
That's a good thought.
I'd be curious what you come up with, because I want to do the same thing for the organization I work for as well. Because I think there'll be some months of transition no matter what, and it's always nice to be able to participate remotely if you break your leg or whatever, you know. So I'd love to see a solution that benefits across all departments, as long as Donna is happy with the way that she can manage it, and the commissioners, the volunteers, can access it at their leisure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matt?
Yeah, moving to an electronic platform is, I think, really important. You know, moving away from paper to having all the files stored electronically in a spot. I think that would be great, and I know Donna's been working towards that. So, and I think we're all somewhat in agreement that we are moving in that direction. I don't think that based on that, even if we go to in-person meetings, I don't think that we're going to go back to paper. Wholesale. I won't. You know, I'll continue to use my own device and bring the stuff and have very little paper at the meetings. It works better for me. I'm not sure that that we should overlook the hardware. I know that it requires a little bit of thought, and maybe now this year is not the right time to do it, although it's it might be. But if it's not, then let's really investigate how the best way to utilize that information, whether it's, as Chris says, to go onto the web and go onto the platform and pick the things out that you're looking at without having to migrate onto a separate machine. I find it's better for me, my process, that I have that information to manipulate. I can make notes on it. I can move things around. It just makes my job as commissioner easier to organize my thoughts before we go in. And let's think about that so that when we talk in March of next year, we've got some direction and some plan.
That's helpful. Thank you. And hopefully in March of next year, the budget will be up online and we'll all be interactively looking at it.
Right.
So to that order, Donna, to achieve your goal quickly, do you need money next year's budget beyond these Chromebooks to effectuate that? Or do you have confidence that our IT system works fluid enough, although it doesn't sound like it last Wednesday, but fluid enough to get us all what we need when we need it?
I think once I'm given the ability, if Ken can figure out how to do it, and if I can't get it from him, I can get it from one of my commission members, because he was the one who taught me how to do other things. So if I can get my system up and running the way that the Board of Education is doing at the Kent Center School, I'm golden. You can forget about the Chromebooks. I'm okay with that. Because my goal is to make everything for my meetings accessible sooner than 3 or 4 days before the meeting.
Yep, makes sense.
It's going to be live time access, and that's what I need.
Great. Jean, in the building itself for the departments, is there any way we can effectuate that immediately? And I know we're getting off topic a little bit, but I'm trying to stay on topic with the concept of solving this problem so that we can take it out of the budget.
I mean, the zero cost.
I don't care about cost. I'm talking about whoever the person is that comes in and dedicates themselves to making sure that whatever department's got a problem, that we take care of it and that it gets done. And again, as I said, if it's modeled off of Donna or if the Board of Education, it should be cross-department all the way around so that everybody knows how to use the system. So
Yeah, but
I don't know whether we have to hire another guy. And
right. So, yep, I get what you're saying. I need to understand what, Donna, what your process is and where the files are going to be stored and how they're accessed, in order to answer that.
okay. Well, I think
sit offline and talk about it today or
okay.
probably.
So I think it's fair to say that we can pull this out right now, the money out, but work towards trying to get this up and running. The only thing I'm not convinced on is the comments that were made about not everybody having hardware. And it might be appropriate for someone like Donna or each department to have 1 or 2 Chromebooks or whatever books they feel, or some sort of piece of machineries where they can, at the meeting, if somebody, let's just say I show up and I forget my device, that there is a device there that somebody can use that might be appropriate and something to think about.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem going out and buying, 3 or 4 of the Chromebooks. I mean, I have one guy on inland wetlands who has a screen that's so small that he sits there with a magnifying glass at the screen. So
Yep.
for you to say it's not the case, I mean, I have one person on ZBA and I have one person that was on inland wetlands that actually ended up resigning their position because they didn't have the technology available to them.
So that's why I would suggest, and I strongly suggest, and I found very profitable in my business in a generic word, to have a big screen on the wall so that anybody and everybody can look at it.
But
So,
you're assuming that people are going to be in the same room with you. What I'm trying to do is solve a problem for people who are trying to participate via Zoom. And that's why I've lost these people, is because they don't have the technology available to them. And there's no reason for them to go out and spend the funds to make themselves technology able. So I like the idea of having a large screen in the large meeting room and setting that all up. That makes perfectly good sense. But if you're not going to be here, then that's not going to help those people that are working from home.
point taken. I think we should be able to provide all those, anybody else a volunteer who
Right.
needs some sort of hardware, we should be able to provide them with something.
Yeah, so Donna, I didn't know that you had members of your commission that quit because they could not, they didn't have the hardware. I would have taken it right out of the LoCIP money to make sure that they had the tools that they needed to participate. 150%. Absolutely. That I never want that to be a barrier.
So that, to that point, you guys, the chairman of the different committees that are on, if you have somebody that needs something, please let Donna know, and then we will find out where we can get that money for them.
You know, that's terrific.
For
I
sure.
think some people don't want, you know, some people just don't want to communicate in that way. Most people do, even older people, and we do, you know, let's face it, we do draw from an older community for our volunteers. The one individual that Donna's talking about, he wouldn't have, he would have said thanks, but no thanks.
Right, I got it.
So it wasn't really, it was the circumstance.
Can we move?
All right, so we're gonna bring down my budget line for supplies then to the same as it was last year, so with no increase.
All right, thank you, Donna, for that.
Thanks, Donna.
Let's move into salary.
Do you want to talk about training first? Because that's a bump and that's an easy one.
Go ahead.
It's no surprise to anybody, but I am thinking about retiring within the next year or so. But anyway, I mean, it's, you know, it's definitely a possibility. And anyway, so I have started Ty on the certification process. So that's why there's the increase in the training. She will need to be certified, Casio certified rather. She already is an inland wetlands agent. She's gone through that training, so that's all been taken care of. She's completed one module for the Casio certification, and I think she's got 2 or 3 more that are going to be left over the next year or so. So, you know, my goal as a manager, that I believe every manager should have, is that your staff should be trained to take over for you in case you get hit by a bus when you're crossing the street. So this is my goal, and I have set it up so that Ty, who is extremely intelligent and can do this job in a heartbeat, is ready to do so if and when the time comes. So that was the reason for the increase in that. And now we can talk about salaries.
Don't we have that? I know we have that concept where anyone in the department who wishes to get more education, we expend funds on them. Isn't that accurate? Joyce, don't you remember that? Is that how we?
There's a policy where they come, it has to be submitted to the Board of Selectmen, I think, for approval.
The program has to be, or just the whole process itself? Or could it be just like it's been being done now through a budgetary process as Don is outlining?
Well, it's supposed to be in the budget, and then I'm just looking for the section.
So Chris, we've got statutory training requirements, and we've always had training as part of our line item in our budget, just FYI.
Yeah, no, I've known that, but I think we have a policy that says if somebody wants to do some more above and beyond to get towards certification of another level, that we support that.
So it is.
Well, certification in my job is,
To attend-
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry, Donna?
Go ahead.
The certification is required here in this position. It was a requirement of my hiring. It was a requirement of Jennifer's hiring. Now people are Casio trained. And
I'm
then
sorry,
we have continuing education as well.
so just to understand that, what's in the line item right now is specifically something that was already part of your hiring process and expectation level of your employee.
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's all for me.
Continuing education, employees are encouraged to attend workshops and conferences as included and approved in their respective departments' budgets, and job certification is the next section. The town will pay the cost of necessary job certification courses as pre-approved by the Board of Selectmen. Such costs will include course materials and the employee's mileage and time.
Okay. So just to be clear, at least in my mind to be clear, and maybe it's muddied a little bit by your statement of retirement, but it's not as if this is a succession concept, because clearly, while I think Ty is excellent, the job has to go out to bid like every other, the position has to go out to bid like every other place. Am I?
Right, under EEOC.
It all depends what kind of policy you want to put in place. You know, if you want to hire from within, if you have that capability, then that's what you should do. If it needs to go out, then it should go out, but there's no doubt in my mind that she wouldn't be the winning candidate.
Okay, I just don't know. I don't know the policy. I believe that if I understand the policy is we put it out and make sure that, you know, we go out and see who's out there in the world. And then that person who typically is the person who most likely would rise is also an applicant of many, many others. So I just wanted to understand that dynamic.
Well, it must have changed, because when I was looking, it was posted internally first, and then it went to the outside. But
yeah, so that's a sort of
That's ambiguous.
a couple of meetings ago it was a long time ago in the policy manual, but it's sort of become a myth that everybody that's sort of perpetuated. It came up with the transfer station, I think. Hang on one second.
Well, I don't know if
we have time.
I don't know if we need to. I don't know if we need to talk about it, Gene, other than what I'm just.
Yeah,
I'm satisfied in terms of how it was explained. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it's under, I believe it's under the equal employment policy.
Okay.
All right, I think we can tackle that another time.
Yep. All right. So salary.
Valerie.
I don't know if Lynn and Matt want to go, or if you want me to go, or.
Well, we can say that we are supporting a 5% increase across the board for both positions, and then it also implies a 5% or an increase in the pension or retirement account. For a number of reasons, which Matt and I can get into, and or Donna, however you want to handle that. The generally speaking workload has increased substantially. Generally speaking, as I understand it, the efficiency has also increased significantly, probably in part because we're not open to the public, so that there are not minutes and hours that get lost in that kind of interaction. But there's no doubt that we've seen an increase in permits. There's no doubt that we've seen an increase in people coming into the community in response to COVID. There's also no doubt that at some point we're going to be opening up in some way, shape, or form to the public. So we anticipate the increased workload to stick around, and we anticipate the efficiency of getting the work done to maybe drag a little. But as I know Matt can say Matt was suggesting to me earlier when we talked that that kind of stepping up to the plate and responding to that increased workload by finding efficiencies and working as efficiently as possible is something that we'd like to reward. We've talked about the need for getting the position in line with other communities with parallel positions and parallel responsibilities. We talked about it last year, and we're talking about it this year within a framework that has changed substantially from year to year. Matt can probably say that better than I just did, and probably hit on a few points I left out.
That was just fine, Lynn. The efficiency factor, I think, it's really important. Donna and I are getting in a tremendous amount of applications, and as evidenced by the number of applications, and also by the revenue that their work, and it's not their work, but the work is generating, right? So I know in my business, our revenue is down because some of our projects were postponed, some of them were canceled, but we slowed down. And I know that in general, retail and services is down. Those industries are down because there's less to do. That's really not the case with land use. Land use has really increased by a third the volume that's coming through, and they have worked hard, as Lynn said, to find efficiency, so they're performing that increased work within the same time frame. And as Lynn said, I think that should be rewarded. I mean, the other side of the coin, we could be continuing along at the same efficiency and paying an additional assistant in order to get all of that work done. So, you know, it's a raise of a couple of percent. Well, so a raise of a couple of percent over what the other departments are getting, I think is warranted just because of the level of work. So that's where I stand.
So along that line of logic, I'm going to take the town clerk's been as busy, I would imagine, because of recordings of title needs and requests and such. And I would imagine the health, social services has been leaned on pretty heavily as well. And, you know, year in and year out, the Treasurer's Department also gets new changes and new modifications to what requirements are. So to a degree, I understand it and I don't disagree with it. It's also part of the job to deal with increase. We don't seem to decrease anybody's salary when workflow slows down during the periods that we've seen slow down. So I don't know if I necessarily follow that track of thinking. I do appreciate the fact that we went through a number of years ago, as you guys remember, because it was the four of us, not the five of us, but the four of us meeting when we had Bruce and Jeff, that we did move the salary. And if you look at actual in 2018 of 37,000 to 43,000, that's a pretty good increase. And believe me, I think it's warranted. I think that your department runs extremely well on both wetlands, ZBA, and zoning. I also think the work that I've had personally dealings with the office is incredible and efficient, but it's also kind of what I expect. And I'm the first one to say I think all of our departments are very well run. And if you look at these budgets, we're not, if you've been on the call long enough, you've seen we haven't really talked to anybody about maybe $500 here or $1,000 here. And that just speaks to the efficiencies that I think everybody's doing. So in this year that we're dealing with the Board of Finance, breathing down our necks in terms of not trying to spend things, we literally are looking at those $500, talking really hard about Chromebooks and talking really hard about postage and things like that. And so I just, changing for one department seems to me a little bit much. And I'm in full support of what the staff does there and the department heads do there.
Yeah, and just to dovetail on that, every single department took what happened almost a year ago. It was March 17th that we declared the emergency, and has done nothing but shift and flex and expand and contract to every executive order, every hiccup along the way, every, just the entire year has been just completely unique. And I think our town government has all done a really great job. But I do also agree with Chris in that I think expecting the, high performance is part of, working in public service. And it would be hard for me to flex for one department and in sort of deference or at the not peril, but not for one and for another. It would be tough for me to get there.
I certainly wouldn't suggest that that you treat people unequally. I would suggest that, my experience and Lynn's experiences with the land use office, and if everybody else, if all of the other departments have really, and I doubt that they have stepped up and are working more efficiently and are working harder in order to, and really putting themselves out there in order to get the job done in the same amount of time and their workload has increased, then perhaps we're being short-sighted across the board. I'm not suggesting that Ty and Donna work any harder than Darlene does, but what I'm suggesting is they're working terribly hard, and they're working terribly efficiently. And as Lynn said, I think that they should be rewarded, and perhaps the Board of Selectmen should be considering raises across the board.
I would just add to that Chris, I appreciate that you expect high quality work, but I'm sure in your line of business, and I certainly know in mine, I've been in and out of a lot of town halls in Western Connecticut and Western Massachusetts, and it is not the great work that the land use office does, and I'm assuming the other departments do in our Kent Town Hall, is not a guarantee in any town hall that you go into. So I think the public facing part of the town hall, certainly in the land use office, and especially given the influx of business and the customer expectation, which has shifted, deserves the way that the land use office has risen to meet that does deserve some that's valuable. It's valuable. It's not something that just occurs everywhere, and it does deserve some recognition. And I would agree with Matt, if that's happening across the board, maybe the time has come to think about a more significant increase across the board for what is apparently an exceptional town hall.
It certainly is an exceptional town hall.
Yep. Yep.
But another way to look at it is, sorry, Chris.
No, go ahead.
And I know it's the way the cards are dealt, but because of the increase in volume, it's also an increase in income that the land use office is generating. So the raises could be offset by an increase in salary can be offset by the tremendous increase in income. Another way to look at it, it's probably not fair to do it, but
well, it's a slippery slope, because if you don't produce, then you get cut. You know, we've certainly tied the building department to that, and one could make an argument one way or another, but that's an outside consultant. These are employees, and I think personally, I think we went through the process of of trying to make things balanced out well, or as well as we could, vis-a-vis not only internally, but also within the marketplace. And I hope you can appreciate, well, of course, you've got people who are working very hard and diligently. I hope you can appreciate the position we're in, such that we now are talking to the whole town. The only thing for the most part that it's grown in our budget are salaries. And I would argue that there is a, you have to pay for good stuff. And I think people are willing to do that. But increasing year over year, department over department is a challenge, and it's the only thing growing in these line items for the most part. It's tough. It's tough for us to do that, especially, and you've likely followed it, but we're now adding $100,000 for, in effect, paid outside consultants for the ambulance. And the town's expectations for emergency services is going to, I'm sure, grow. And whether the appetite to pay for it or not is going to, I don't know. But so we're dealing with, clearly, as you're dealing with the management of one department, we're dealing with the sort of overall ship. And, I'm not convinced.
That's why you get paid the big bucks, Chris.
Yeah, that's why I get the big Chromebook. I'm not, I totally appreciate Donna's work and the operations in there, but I'm just not convinced that this is the right time to make that jump.
Can I say something? I'm not going to go into the specifics, but I do have a write-up that Ty has created about our department and where we're at right now in comparison to where we were last year. And it is significant. I think the other thing that you've got to take into consideration is we are a 1.5 person department. I'm comfortable speaking about myself. I don't like it, but I'm going to do it anyway. We're a 1.5 person department that has increased the revenue substantially because of the circumstances. If you look at the town of Washington, they have 4 people, possibly 5, that are going to be doing the job of 1.5 people. Roxbury has 6 people. Some of them are part-time, some of them are full, that are doing the same job that we are doing. I'm going to say that I deserve my money, but I'm also going to say that every other person in this town hall deserves an increase as well. You looked at the salary lines the other night for the first time when Barbara put them in as 3 and made an arbitrary decision to go down to 2% without any explanation whatsoever. So I'm here to give you an explanation why I think that I believe I need 5. And so does my assistant. And I think that everybody else in this department, in this town hall, also needs a better recognition for the work that they have done during COVID. They need a better raise from 2 to at least 5%. If you can't give us all 5, then give us all 3. We have had no recognition whatsoever for all of the work that we have done in this past year. So that is the reason that I'm bringing all of this forward. If you want to see the backup information, I'd be more than happy to show it to you. But I think that the other night, we as employees deserved a little bit more recognition of, we're going to drop it down to 2 because we think that's a good thing to do based on the budget from 2001. Sorry, but I'm not.
I think
Can I-
perception is in the eyes of the beholder. If you recall the rationale, and it's my rationale, which is a holdover from last year's rationale, which is which is a holdover from the years of sitting on this board, is 3% to me is what? Is that a raise? Is that a recognition? Or is it just sort of what everybody bandied about was, well, we got it because the teachers got it, or the other union got it, or other people got it. To me, the rationale is simply you make salaries comparable to the marketplace as best you can And I can argue Washington to you because I know those numbers cold in terms of how many people have come through and purchased there versus in Kent. The reality is that what that 2% represents is a little bit more than a cost of living, because it's my personal belief that even though it's 1.3 that they put out as COLA, that, and Matt can probably attest to this, lumber has gone up, other things have gone up that are hidden costs that to me are inflation, and therefore I recognize that a little bit. So I think a 2% rather than a 3% is a little bit more appropriate and a little bit more accurate to a cost of living. And that's why it's across the board. As opposed to recognition, while I can appreciate the fact that you and others want recognition, the bottom line is we've all been in this, and everybody is struggling and working as hard as they can to deal with things. And while we all appreciate each other, and we can all get cranky with each other at times, the reality is that I think it shows our fortitude that we're all doing this. I don't know if you need recognition, but if people do, I will say it again. I think we got one of the best town halls in the area. And I think that a year in and over, as I've said, I think the departments run extremely well. I think they're very conscious of our bottom line. And I'm perfectly willing at times to adjust people's salaries. I'm open to adjusting people's salaries when it's completely out of whack with the industry. But when it isn't, I don't know if it's, and I hope you can appreciate the challenge that the Board of Selectmen have, because it happens every year.
Right.
We've got people who've been voted in. We've got people who've been hired in. We have people who, like you, Donna, who have two bosses in effect, whereby there's a department that doesn't have anybody who's so it's so crazy. There's really no way for anyone to even out that line.
Well, I know, I mean, you and I have been going back and forth on this over budgets many times. With an HR background, you need to have, and I'll just say it again, you need to have a philosophy. The increase that you're giving people, is it for their past work as performance? Appraise, they did a great job, so therefore I'm going to give you an increase? Or are you going to look at it as motivation for them to continue doing what they're doing? I think the reason that you have the people who have stepped up to the plate are because they are professionals and they will do whatever it takes to do their job. But
And
you
I don't
have a philosophy in place on how you're going to give these people recognition, whether it's monetary, whether it's, hey, you know what? It's going to be a slow day, take a Friday off. It's got to be something, because at this point in time, there is none. So that's why I think that, and I've said it every year, year after year after year, figure out what your philosophy is so that the people who are standing before you and asking for things that they never had to ask before know what the playing ground and the playing field is, because it's not.
I certainly don't disagree with you as far as a philosophy. It's a struggle with any board, because the board, every 2 years, the board changes. So you're, resetting and resetting and resetting, going through this personally right now. And I don't think from a philosophy standpoint, you have to choose whether it's motivation or recognition, but because I come from, before public health, I come from the private sector where my every salary, every bonus, every raise was based on setting goals and reaching performance measures.
Right.
We don't have anything
Exactly
in the entire town government for which we can base for whether it's motivation or recognition. We should have performance measures and benchmarking and accountability. There's always been pushback forever, amen, for accountability when it comes to something as simple as filling out a timesheet. And I'm told that is never going to be on the table. But we owe it to the public to be able to have accountability. And not only is it in, yes, we all are professionals. You don't have to say that. We're all professionals and we're all here to serve the public. But there comes a time, and public servants. There should be benchmarking done. There should be accountability, because if somebody from the public asks me, how many hours did this person work, or how many hours did that person work? I know it's in the budget, but for only a very small subset of people is there accountability. So it's really more, there's more to it. And I agree with you, but in order to do either one of those things, recognition or motivation, we need to start looking at setting goals and having performance measures, and pushing in some accountability to every person, whether, regardless of your pathway to employment, there should be accountability.
I have that. And I have that accountability to Lynn and that accountability to Matt, and accountability like that to the building official and the fire marshal. So I have that. And it seems like it doesn't really mean anything that I have that accountability. And I have goals, and I have structure, and I know what I need to do. And I am here. You know what my hours are. Everybody does. And I work them. So talking to me about accountability, I already have it.
And so I'll jump in and leave you with a final, one of my final thoughts is that you know, I spend a certain amount of time every month on planning and zoning, right? So there's anymore it's at least a 3-hour meeting, and anymore I need to spend a couple of hours ahead of time, at least, let's say 3 hours. And so it's not a tremendous amount of time on a monthly basis, but if I didn't have all of the information that I needed in the format that made it reasonable for me to review, I couldn't do what I need to do within that time period, and I'm not sure that I would want to. So.
And I would add, oh, I'm sorry, Matt, are you done? I'm going to second what you said. The land boards and commissions are probably the most vulnerable to scrutiny and lawsuit. Having professionals who are on top of everything at every level is critically important to volunteers like me. Not only do we pull from an older pool, but we also have to pull from people, from a pool of people who work. If you want to have a vibrant volunteer community in Kent, especially on the land use boards and commissions, because it's not just meetings, it's also site visits, it's also the stuff we do in between the meetings, it's also staying on top of case law, especially when it comes to wetlands, which seems to be governed primarily by case law, unfortunately. That kind of professionalism and willingness to step up to the plate is important. And without a good team, you're going to lose your volunteers. At least you're going to lose your good volunteers. I think it's important. I also want to just verify something. So this 2%, Chris, you think of as a cost of living increase, is that right? That's how I would view it.
That's how so the 3% has always been categorized in my understanding as a cost of living. That was sort of what it was. It was sort of the catch-all. I challenged that because cost of living has never been 3%, at least in my understanding. And so when I brought that up after we did the raises, if you will, when we went across the board and looked at every department and made adjustments and raises, it is my position and my philosophy, if you want to say, that the cost of living should not be either a gratitude number, or it should not even be a performance number. It is simply a cost of living number. And
right.
In my opinion, my philosophy is, if indeed you believe that that your department head is compensation is out of whack with the whole market, then I'm willing to listen to it. In fact, we have listened to it, if you recall.
Right.
But to necessarily give people raises and performance raises when you guys may be the arbiters of what she does and the recipient of what the department does, and that's all great. The challenge is that we don't have an across the board a system whereby that kind of recognition is done. And so, yes, to answer your question, the 2% is a recognition that the COLA, as put out by the government, I think is a little bit under the mark, and therefore, plus we live in an area that it's much tougher than say other places. So I think that's where it's warranted, and it has nothing to do with anything but the COLA.
Yeah, certainly
Okay.
in my business, we've got different departments, right? I'm responsible for certain people, and my brother's responsible for certain people. And when we get together and then talk about not only who we work with, but we talk about really everybody. And we start with a cost of living increase, and that changes from year to year. This year it's for us it's zero, right? For us down here, cost of living is zero. So we're that our next opportunity to recognize people is with a raise. And a recognition through a raise is not ideal, because that raise is there forever. So we recognize people in private industry with a bonus. And I understand that in the public side you can't really do that. You're not saying it's probably too subjective, but there has to be, I think there has to be some method for rewarding. And for Donna, for me, it's my philosophy is rewarding this past performance, in the hopes that the reward for that past performance will translate into an incentive later. But I always look at it, you worked hard last year, you worked hard for us. It's evidenced by this, which is what Jean started to talk about, about what that accountability is, and on what basis are you being measured. Or are any of us being measured? But I think that there has to be the cost of living on the one side, which is, somewhat addresses Lynn's point, I think, and then this incentive, bonus, whatever it is, and that's you guys have to struggle with that. We've made our recommendations, and you as the CEOs, I would say, president and executives, they have to make that final decision. Right, so that's what I would say. There's a bonus, should be a bonus.
The cost of living over time is just wearing on employees, because they never get ahead. And maybe this is the year to recognize the exceptional work that the town hall did, because I sense, and I think Matt does too, that the increased efficiency is going to be worn away at a little bit as we open to the public, but the workload is not going to decrease. If anything, the trends are going to continue and maybe increase. That's the other thing to think about. At some point, if we are not acknowledging and recognizing extra work with a raise, or whatever you want to call it, and maybe it's across the board again for the entire town hall, having become so exceptional in what was an exceptional year. And it's going to remain exceptional. It's going to shift, but it's going to remain exceptional, at least for the next year. If you can't do it across the board, you may be faced with a request for additional support within the land use office at some point down the road as well. I don't know. We'll have to see how it all shakes out, and whether or not the trends continue in terms of people moving to the community full time, or building and moving first time. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Thanks for hearing us both out, and Donna.
For coming and spending the time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, once again, land use takes up all the time.
Yeah.
3-hour meetings, Matt, 3-hour meetings.
An easy one for you, Matt.
Hey, class gone from 1-hour meetings to 2-hour meetings on the wetland side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
That's pretty good.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
thanks for the time. Take care, Donna.
Yeah.
Bye, Lynn.
See you Thursday.
Bye.
All right, sounds good. Bye, everybody. Thanks for
Bye.
being.
Bye.
So Leslie needs to run out for after school program. So we're going to bump her up to right now. Is that
Okay. Yep.
Thank you.
sure?
Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Where is Leslie? Oh, there she is. Okay.
So the, Leslie, the one, where is that? Do you want to talk about your,
Yeah, it's under the hourly employees.
yeah, your commission's recommendation?
Yep, the commission has recommended $7,000 to help with some maintenance work. That's kind of a three-part issue. John Grant used to do a lot of the work, and now with COVID, he's, working more at his job, so doesn't leave him as much time to do the work he used to do in the parks. We also used to use the private schools, and they this year were not able to come off campus to do any community service. And then John Lindsay from the Highway Department used to do work as well. So this was their recommendation. I suggested maybe we get someone just to come in one time to do whatever it is, that they want to do. John Grant is supposed to be working on a job description. We've also talked to the land trust because they hire part-time summer worker that could we work with them. Personally, I'm not sure how this works. I said, this person would have to be overseen. I'm not sure how it works, with the highway department, if there's, crossover there that could be troublesome. But that was the commission's request. And also, as you can tell, there'll probably be money left over in the current budget that we may be able to use to get a chunk of that work done in the spring.
So Leslie, do you, you use outside contracted work?
Yeah, like for tree work and things like that, yes.
I guess my initial concern is there's, Park and Rec doesn't have equipment or supplies or.
I pointed that out. And I said, who's going to be supervising this person?
Right.
So, yeah.
And Rick, with the eventual refilling of John Lindsay's position, I guess, not putting you on the spot, but would it be possible for that person to help out with this? Did they talk about how many hours? Be just summer?
It would be seasonal. It would be, trimming bushes, and there's wood chips from tree work that needs to be spread around. Not sure what else was on their list, but things like that.
Rick, again, not to put you on the spot, but any thoughts as far as that getting?
If it's something that's not done on a weekly or every couple of week basis, why wouldn't it be just put in park maintenance and hire a subcontractor to do it instead of adding an employee that you're gonna have to cover as the insurances and everything else? Something where you're hiring somebody that's,
Has the equipment and has supervision.
Yeah, has training, whatever. So yeah, I'm not sure how many hours that really entails. When they were first talking, they were talking about a certain number of hours, and I'm like, well, we can't go, past 30 hours, because then that's going to require, benefits and stuff. So I was like, we're not doing that. So, yeah.
So did they give you a number of hours that they? And
They
I'm sorry.
Yeah, they talked about paying, was it 19 an hour, I think. And And I will apologize because I don't remember what the number of hours was that they were working off of.
And what was the total budgeted number that they?
7,000.
So. I get 368. Not even. Seems divided by. So seasonally, like May 1 to September 1, did they give you any indication?
Yeah, I think it was like mid-April, maybe late April to, into the fall. But, personally, once we go in, or this person goes in and trims the bushes that are around in the swimming area, that's probably good for the season. You may have to go back in the fall and do just a little bit, but it's not something to do every week.
Right.
That's it, my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Chris, thoughts?
Not so much on that, I guess, but I think your maintenance is your maintenance and you're just going to be doing that. But on the fee programs, I'm looking at expenditures anticipated this year at 13,000 with a budgeted line of 14,000. And can you just help me understand, because I, not knowing and not seeing things because everyone's been sort of sheltered, those fee programs have actually been operating?
So the fee programs that have been operating, after school program is operating. It's providing a service to the working parent, so it's running about half of what our attendance was last year. And Chris, I did not put in that anticipated number, nor was I asked about it, so.
Well, it's just done based on typically the time of year. It's not, it's not anybody doing anything other than guesstimating. So, to my point, I would imagine that number is not accurate, but do you really do you anticipate needing $14,000 this year? When, I clearly see with the loss of a valued town employee, and with the loss of volunteers because of certain things, that maintenance is going to require much more going forward than, say, maybe programs. And, would it be prudent to make sure that we're not short-sighting ourselves on maintenance and overzealous on programs?
Yeah, because programs, it's very hard to know, we're working now on, can we have baseball, but make it a summer activity. So by then the children are out of school, because the Region 1 schools have been trying to keep their school,
in bubbles. Yep.
Right. Whereas our baseball program, is a regional thing. So,
right. I guess the question that I would put if I were on the board or even sitting at the board level would be to simply ask, is it appropriate to think in the next year or so that we're going to put on programs? If so, how are we going to pivot and do what many people are doing? They're not contact sports, or they're not this kind of sports, but they're a different type of maneuver. I think it might be a time to dial that back and let the parents take programming onto themselves. But I don't know. I don't know what the feedback is. But I don't see the traditional Park and Rec programming that I recall being part of over the years being the same.
Right, like we weren't able to do soccer, we weren't able to do basketball because we couldn't get into the school. So
So, but maybe the funds are needed for other types of programs, or maybe they're not. Maybe it's a hiatus time where we can refigure, but I'm challenging the $14,000 need for fee programs when I think we might be able to dial that back. And again, it's not about the allocation of the funds specifically for that, because if you anticipate needing to take care of other maintenance issues, then I think that's where we sort of focus.
Okay, I can bring that back to the commission.
Okay.
And Chris, what about the hiring of another employee versus contracting out that work?
Versus what?
Contracting out the.
Yeah, my sense is contracting is the smarter move, because you can be project specific and say, I want you to accomplish. I mean, talk about accountability. It's like, mow this field, or make sure this is all taken care of, or X, Y, and Z. And those people that you hire are the specific people for that. So I'd be inclined to rather spend the money in that direction.
And you could say to them, this is this project we have to do, give me a price. Or we could say, well, if we're not going to be supervising, it's hard to say, go and do this. And they might say, oh, well, we spent 10 hours on it, when in fact they spent 2. So I think if we were to go the subcontractor, I would be inclined to hire them to do job X for a predetermined price.
Well, and that would be good, because then you could account it pretty easily.
Right.
And you could maybe even lump it. There's a person who does I believe that takes care of the cemeteries, and maybe they want added work or not. I don't know. If they're bringing all their machines up to Kent, if they're outside of Kent,
Right.
Maybe it's a benefit. But I think that's where, that's the direction we should take, I think, all in all, unless we are going to be committed to having a person specifically for the parks.
Yeah.
I think it probably makes sense to contract out that, to shift that number into the park maintenance and do it through contracting. And then you can take this coming year to see. It's sort of the precursor of, yeah, we do need somebody as part of the staff, as part of the town government that's devoted to the park maintenance.
I would agree with that.
So it would be shifting out from that line 023102, correct?
Yep.
So shifting that 7,000 out to 023419.
So but digging a little deeper on that 9, we budgeted this year 46,058, and again, anticipated is 30, and I know that we have the warmer months ahead of us. Do you think that's an accurate number, especially when you look back and see we spent 36, 32? We've been hovering around the mid to low 30s, and now we budgeted another 10 grand above what we spent in 18.
Right.
But 16 grand above what we anticipated.
Right. So that the hourly employees, that would have covered summer camp and lifeguards that did not happen. So yeah, that 30, we did have to have extra staff at after school program to meet qualifications.
Right, but I guess the understanding, part of this is, and I'm sure the town and taxpayer will want to know at time of discussion, is where are we going with Park and Rec?
Yes,
we
are talking about that, Chris.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
I know we are, but I'm just saying that it just begs that question of, I don't think anyone's arguing that, we've enjoyed Park and Recreation. That's not the issue.
Right.
I think the issue is things have changed, and people want to know how they're changing, and they're changing in lots of different places, and we have to explain it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean to say at some point we don't go back to some sort of different system, but I don't think if we had a normal year in 18-19 and spent 36,000 on employees, it seems strange in an abnormal year, or maybe 2 abnormal seasons, we'd be spending even close to that.
True.
And maybe we should adjust it. But I don't want to adjust it until I have confidence from the Park and Recreation Commission that they have a real plan, and these are the numbers that we, they see, because it doesn't benefit anyone to cut something and all of a sudden
Then we need it.
have all the programs and you can't pay for it.
And there is backup explanation of that money, so,
We saw that.
yep, but I can go back to,
But I don't know if that's all realistic.
Yeah.
That's I guess probably the easiest way to say it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So for the moment, we'll move that 7,000 out of the hourly employees. So that makes that number now 46,688.
And then we have a commission meeting next week, so I will ask the commission to look at that hourly number again and see, if there's anything that we can change on it or decrease.
Yeah, that would be very, very helpful.
Okay. And I feel really, really bad, but I really, really have to go because now I'm
Yes.
very, very late.
Go, go, go.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
So. Why don't we, I got lost here. Don't see Stan. Donna, do you have anything to say in Stan's stead? It looks like it's pretty much flat, his budget.
I don't do the fire marshal budget. I just do building, ZBA, planning and zoning, and inland wetlands.
No, I knew that. I didn't know if maybe he had given you something. Okay, so we'll continue to move on. Police protection, EMS staffing, LCD, and really the one that of that category for public safety is civil preparedness. I know David has, he's submitted a budget. David, do you want to come off mute?
What line are we on?
Hi.
So the line right now is 377. So this is, where there's
Got
been, very little activity, and this year definitely has sort of highlighted the need for building this department. So David's budget is, what is it?
31,450 is the number. I also have some remarks if you'll indulge me.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. So good afternoon, and thank you for hearing the emergency management as listed civil preparedness budget details and our proposed increase in the budget. We are looking to and realistically must modernize the department. And we have started that process, but with an outdated set of plans on file and many processes not set to state standards of practice or even at the guidelines required to be eligible for many of the state and federal emergency management and homeland security grant programs. We are in the process of fixing that and look forward to, in the coming months, submitting to the state a modern local emergency plan utilizing the current templates as required. Gone are the days that emergency managers are primarily on the ground, patrolling, standing at the curb of a fire or other event. And instead, the era we are in has evolved to a role that frequently also during blue sky days works on planning, preparing, coordinating, and bringing all branches of service together. With that, upon taking over the department, myself and the deputy, Eric Epstein, who's also on this call, immediately worked to regularly bring together a robust team centralized and coordinated by the Emergency Management Department, which includes fire, EMS, CERT, law enforcement, health, and other stakeholders as needed, which often also includes utility companies and other partners, as seen during the different phases of the COVID-19 response and the tropical storm Isaias response. We're also building a CERT, which is Community Emergency Response Team, from scratch, along with Bonnie Zanzella, who has done a great job as our team coordinator, and we thank her very much for that. The team, however, has few pieces of equipment and only initial training. Their capabilities over the longer term, if given resources and attention, will be very beneficial to our community. The demands of working with Eversource are greater than ever, and they, as a company, are also working to move into the future and to include electronic systems. We are regularly engaged with our reps throughout all hours for events big and small. This past weekend, and there was a power surge, would be another example of things that go on in the background, not just large responses. VOC is the annual fee that we've listed in the budget for our virtual EOC. We are just scratching the surface for that tool, and we expect the future of EOCs globally to be more focused on remote operations. That evolution was only accelerated by the pandemic. Our first year, fortunately, was paid for with federal and state COVID relief funds, which has been of great help to us to get that jump started at no cost to the local taxpayers. We are looking to stay ahead of the curve with this, and will continue to roll out that capability throughout this and future years. We're also currently working with CISA, the Cyber and Infrastructure Security Agency, regarding cybersecurity and bringing the town's plans, procedures, and practices in line with current standards. Many smaller towns have also become targets, and we, along with the First Selectmen, want to be proactive, not reactive. The programs that we are working within are no cost and provided by the federal government upon request, which is an added benefit to the local community. The department in reality is no longer civil preparedness as titled. The shift over the past 2 decades in this area has been to emergency management and homeland security. And beyond looking to our neighbors, all we need to do is look to the past year and the impact on and response by Kent to realize the new world we are living within. This budget lays the groundwork as we dig out of the pandemic and into the future to ensure our community is more prepared than ever for what may impact it in the years ahead. Again, thank you, and welcome to take questions on the proposed budget.
So help me, because this has always been sort of a smaller, not focused on group. This is under the purview of the Board of Selectmen, correct?
Meaning?
Who's the boss? Board of Selectmen? I mean, you,
So,
right? Okay.
so,
Okay.
by state statute, the First Selectman appoints an emergency management director. They do that through the regional coordinator and through the DEMIS desk, the regional coordinator there. So, but they have the through state statute under the emergency management and civil preparedness statutes to do that. And then they can also appoint deputies. So that's where Eric gets
Right.
appointed. And then the EMD can appoint the CERT and other functions. So that's where, like with Bonnie as an example, was somebody that in consultation with the First Selectman and the deputy EMD, we then appointed Bonnie in that role.
Great, thank you. You just mentioned a bunch of things like an updated emergency services plan. I'm just curious as to when the public gets to see that. And when I mean the public, it first starts with the Board of Selectmen, and then certainly the greater, because part of what I see or don't see is stuff happening in the background in town that Joe public doesn't understand or see or know even how it came about. So I think that would be a good thing to clarify, especially when you start to talk budget lines, because people want to know what we're spending money on. I guess my question is, when that plan's done, we'll get to see it, and then we'll be getting, approve it before it gets
I'm not sure, I'm not sure those are published because they're,
They're-
contain, sorry, go ahead, David.
That, yeah, no, and yeah, that I can check with the regional coordinator. It's my understanding that either the far majority of it gets redacted, or in reality under FOIA requests, most of those plans don't actually get out to the public because there's a lot of there's some secure information in there. However, those are the types of things. I mean, you are the executive board of the town, so we can confirm, but usually under like a private executive session, if you guys hold those are the times where they can be reviewed. There is just a security element to publishing it to the public, but it could, at least that you've reviewed it, likely could be done. We can work with Demis just on exactly the mechanism.
Well,
for that.
maybe I'm just I'm lost in this whole thing because to me, civil preparedness to me is if a tornado comes, we have to have a system in which to be able to do things. I don't know why that should be proprietary to a group of people who run it. But that said, I just don't understand it. So getting to the budget itself, I'm seeing $4,950. Is that accurate? As a request?
The current year budget is $4,950, and we're requesting. It's not listed in that budget document. I hadn't been provided.
Got it. Go ahead. What's the number?
Initially with the supplies. So our current request is $31,450.
31,000.
It's broken up over 3 lines. The
I'm
first
sorry.
line would be
$31,000.
Yeah.
Correct.
Then I need a spreadsheet. I don't, where's
So if you let him finish, Chris, he'll outline. David.
No, I want to see a spreadsheet.
Okay.
I don't want to take $31,000 and plunk it into this budget and not have a spreadsheet.
Okay, so up until this moment, there's always only been a single line for civil preparedness. It's been a completely underdeveloped, underfunded department. So just bear with us to step into at least the 20th century on this. Do you have a screen share, David?
You haven't sold me.
If you
Get it.
give me a moment here.
It's a pretty simple 3-line budget, Chris. The OC is $6,950. So that's the software solution that's used for running the EOC. There we go.
So there's 3 lines. We're increasing the supply line. The reason for that is the CERT team, specifically on supplies. We're only able, with the existing budget, didn't plan for a CERT team, and they have nothing from a supply standpoint. They have no training budget, anything like that. And we would like to have some ability here, particularly as we start being able to do things in person soon. To also focus on that team. The virtual EOC, that's the annual maintenance cost. It's a cloud-based product and includes enough user licenses for everyone in CERT and all the stakeholders within emergency management. That includes the police, fire, LE. Also didn't mention, but Public Works is involved in that. We stay in close contact. And then this adds stipends for the EMD and the deputy EMD, which so far have been non-budgeted items. But I would also note that with the staff stipends and redoing the LEOP that we mentioned and submitting that in the new template to the state, we'll be eligible for $5,000 back each year in EMPG funding. So that does help reduce that staff component. If we file that paperwork each quarter, they pay it. So totals 5,000. So the actual net back is 26,450 after you file for that grant.
And so CERT has, CERT is brand new and there's no, we've never had one in town. So there are costs that go with training CERT members and just as a, for instance, Chris, CERT has been running all of the traffic management for the test site. They schedule all of the volunteers to manage the flow of traffic, and they just handle the whole thing. And that's just one of dozens of availability that we can use the CERT for, which takes off, in a lot of places can take the pressure off the fire department, where they're losing volunteers and their ability to provide, CERT could even be providing road closures and standbys at road closures during a storm, where right now that's what the fire department does. And it's sort of a wasted resource for the fire department because you have these highly trained firefighters who are sitting in a pickup truck making sure that people don't pass at these road closures. So that would be something that the CERT team would be way more appropriate use for. Rather, keeping the firefighters available to go on actual related calls. And there's a whole ton of other missions that they're allowed to be deployed for. And this is, it's the first time any attention really since right after 9/11 that emergency preparedness has been paid. It's been limping along. We've just been lucky, honestly, that nothing, haven't had a pandemic until last year. And what David and Eric did between the pandemic and the tropical storm, the amount of hours and expertise that they invested in helping the town enormously. We never had a Twitter account for emergency management. They now have a Facebook page and a Twitter account, and I don't know who was recreationally complaining the other day on Facebook, but in fact, they had all the notices up at like 7 o'clock in the morning. So the amount of monitoring and pushing out information is stuff that, like you were saying, you don't see because there's not, it happens in the background, and a lot of it happens virtually. But we need to spend this is, in the grand scheme of things, it's really not a lot of money. It's a big bolus of money this year, but we have to be able to step into the sphere to protect the town better.
You don't want me to comment. I'm really frustrated that this is coming up like this.
Well,
I mean, the Swift House, hold on. The Swift House spent months and months and months to put together a program and came to the Board of Selectmen, talked about it, brought it up. And on the workshop day, we're talking about an expenditure of $31,000 that it just seems so crazy to me, without a plan, without how this works, without who am I paying in the staff stipends, what are qualifications, it's really taken me aback on how And I think personally, I think it's a slap in the face for all the other people who have prepared the way we prepare. This isn't even a spreadsheet, for Christ's sakes. This is just a damn,
Okay, but Chris,
it's irking me. I'm sorry. $31,000 in a budget that we are working hard. We're not even giving raises to people for a program. And I'm sorry for going off on it like this, but I don't think this is an appropriate time to do it. If we want to try it next year, I would like to have a coordination between the civil preparedness, or whatever you call them, in conjunction with the fire department, talking about their needs and how this can dovetail in it. It may be perfectly make a lot of sense, but it's not the time to make the decision, I don't believe.
This has never been, I don't know how else to explain it. Just because the department has been completely ignored for 20 years, since 9/11 happened, since literally the last time it was given any attention paid to it was when Tony Eamon was the civil preparedness director, and it's almost 20 years ago. Let me finish. And it limped along because nothing bad happened, and that was only a stroke of luck. And the absolute utter bare minimum was done year after year after year. Who the stipends are going to. I think it's you're just trying to collapse the conversation, and I honestly don't appreciate that you're trying to do that. You know that the stipends would be going to David Becker and Eric Epstein, who are both.
And my vote right now.
Chris, finish. Let me just finish. Please, I let you go. Just let me finish. You know who the stipends are going to. The number, the number, if it's not this year, then next year we're going to come back and have the same thing. It has to be a beginning to this department. There has never been a beginning to this department. It is the town, and this is the case in a lot of these small towns. And this year, the past 15 months have really illustrated how important it is to have emergency management. I can't do this. The fire department is not qualified to be emergency management. There are qualifications that emergency management director and the deputy need to have, and the fire department does not have them. And the fire department's role is not emergency management. The fire department's role is to put out fires. And I get that there's a big education gap here for you, Chris. I completely understand it. I don't have that education gap, and I think I deserve a little bit of respect understanding the needs of emergency management for a town. And this investment is an important investment to make in our overall safety of the town, because the firefighters cannot and should not be pushed into this role, because it's not their role. And we're not going to get, we're lucky that we've gotten Eric and David for the past 15 months. If we had to hire a consultant to come in and run the last 15 months, it would be 5 times this number. And then that person would walk away at the end. We're investing in qualified people and having a basic level of equipment that we really need to have in the town. Rick is not, his role is not to be the emergency director. And again, the fire department's role is not to, their role is response. This is a planning and coordination department that needs to have growth, and it needs to be supported by the town budget. And we got to start somewhere. If you want to hack away at the supply line, hack away at the supply line, but it's got to start somewhere, and we can't keep putting it off. Because I don't have the time. There's not enough hours in the day for me to be the person who tweets about storms coming and stays up on the millions of information that floods in for emergency management. And I know that Eric and David probably need to spend some time with, you know, educating the board on it. And I know that they're absolutely willing to do that, but we've got to, this is an investment that we need to make. And it can't be ignored. It's been ignored. And you can't blame David and Eric for it being ignored for the last 20 years.
Can I ask a question?
A long time problem.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Thank you. We got our budget letter from Barbara that talked about when the budget packets were going out and when they were supposed to be received back to her. We've been off a couple of months, not even a month, a couple of weeks. Why? I agree with Chris. Why is this now coming forward when you only have 3 days to do this? And that you have been cutting our budgets, looking at postage and looking at supplies. And now you're throwing this out when they have been in existence, like you're saying, for 15 months. I am at a loss to understand how this one department is getting preferential treatment over the rest of us, and they had no responsibility to follow the requirements that the rest of us had to follow. I'm sorry. This is just totally unacceptable behavior by the.
Thank you, Donna.
I did not receive the budget document, just to be clear. I would have, if I received it, I would have, or an email asking for it at that time, I would have filled it out and I would have submitted it in that form. I found out last week, timeline-wise, and I provided the information. I was asked by Jean, and I provided it right away.
David and everyone, to dial this back, my frustration does not lie in the situation of, as Jean calls it, the knowledge of what is needed. I don't have a beef with that. My concern is really more about how this process has unwound. Jean, I totally respect your knowledge in this. I totally respect it. What I'm having a hard time is the process itself. And I'm frustrated because the budget itself, I'm going through here, looking at departments, I'm gonna pick it out, looking at Debbie DeVoe's line for postage to see if I can find $50, and to have $31,000 without real preparation is just taking me back. The Swift House, and I'll go back to that, has been ignored since 9/11 too. Now, I'm not going to say that the Swift House has a direct apples to apples correlation to the safety of human beings, but it is clearly an area in where we have neglected it. But we did give it the process, and we did take the time to explain openly to the public as to what we had to do and how we had to do it. And then we're going to let the public decide that. The ambulance spent almost 2 years explaining to us that they were going to be in this situation. And they really did, homework, and they outlined it, and they came to town meetings. And it was part of the process. And where I'm a little concerned is we're taking and it may be well needed, but we're taking a small item in the budget and blowing it up to a considerable amount in terms of a percentage wise, without the proper backup. It might be appropriate, and it actually might be even be underfunded for that matter. I don't know. But I don't even have. I don't feel comfortable, and I will not at this point, just start a new program and fund a new program to this level without really truly understanding it. And understanding it means not only I understand it, but the taxpayer understands it, and it's weighed into with all the other emergency services. In good conscience, I can't do that.
So where would you like this to go? Where would you like to take this? Because
I say we hold the budget line, and I recommend that the group that's working on this put together a real comprehensive package that understand that the town can understand, which means coordination, responsibility. What does it mean? I mean, I don't even know when you say there's an emergency that this has saved us so much money. I don't even know how or why. And if that could be explained to me and I understand it and feel I see the need for it, then certainly I'd be behind it. But just right now, I say we flatline this budget. I say that the group put together a whole package and a program and come to us, the Board of Selectmen, like any of these other lines, and says, this is why I want to do with my group going forward. And if it's a super emergency, we can go to the town during the year of the budget and fund it if they see it fit. Or we work it into next year's budget.
We need to, I don't agree with flat funding it because we're not even going to be able to maintain the basic tool that David and Eric and Rick and myself and Torrington Area Health Department utilize when for dozens of different purposes, but the basic ability to run an EOC, to open up an EOC.
But I don't even know what a VOC is or VOEC. You know, so how do you expect the average taxpayer to even get in line with this when you're getting crankiness from a guy who's somewhat tangentially involved in it? You know, I'm not emergency perspective. I'm not that manner. This town has been operating for over 200 years with people and systems. The world has actually they've gone through a couple of world wars and such. So, you know, I'm not really of the mindset to understand right now before a budget, while we're trying to put this budget together, to understand the requirement and the need for something that doesn't seem to have been, it has been operating in the background. And unless I'm missing something, unless I'm missing that, you know, we need to, you know, there's something I'm missing. We need another car, truck, or we need another, I don't know. I mean, again, I apologize for getting cranky. It's just a little frustrating sitting through these meetings and then having a process that I expect and then having it sort of twisted a little bit. Not by anyone's doing, other than this is sort of how it's come down. But I like process. I like process. I like accountability. I like understanding. I like to make sure that everybody's agreeing on it. I don't want to say just, oh, wow. And I'm not being pejorative, but, you know, two or three people decide this is what we need, and therefore we're going to just, you know, put it forward without really vetting it. I've said too much.
So, you know, I'll certainly take the hit for not, you know, being a new guy in the room and not knowing the full process of creating a new department. The last year has shown that there's a lot of work that has not been getting done to help protect the town. And again, it's not done by the fire department. And I
look forward to
the baby with the bathwater by we can't flat fund it because we're going to get reimbursed for $5,000 right off the bat. So we have to start somewhere. And yeah, David and Eric will come up with a plan, and if it needs to go to that plan needs to come to the Board of Finance for the very basics of what this department looks like. But we're setting up emergency management for failure right now by doing this, and we're setting up our CERT team to evaporate. And I'm not saying that as a threat. I'm just saying that as a huge concern, because we just limp along, and we can't keep just limping along. But
But you make the assumption I understand what the hell a CERT is. I don't even know what CERT is an acronym for. What the hell it is? It's
okay,
huh?
but Chris, David and I said it at least once, and David said it at least once. What it stands for, what the acronym is, that it's a community emergency response team. It fills the gap between the fire department and EMS and regular citizens, I guess you could say.
Okay, but that's
Yeah, I
like
mean-
saying, I'm a fund manager or a hedge fund guy or something that nobody knows what happens in the financial services, but they need, there's no context. There's no context as to what this group is done. There's just no context. And
Because it's brand new.
okay, but then explain it to me from the beginning, and that's all I'm saying. So
Okay.
I'm letting, for sake of argument for this budget, because I'm getting really ready to move on, I think we flat fund this, bring it back to the board as to, and you and Ed are a wealth of knowledge in terms of what and how and why this should coordinate and work. And then be able to explain it to me, the newbie and naive one, in terms of the whole emergency services. And if I can get it, there are way smarter people out there who will get it in a heartbeat as taxpayers. And I just think we owe that to them, especially in a time where, in reflection of what we've just gone through, picking apart, the skeletons of all these departments and, just giving them a cost of living increase, it's tough. It's tough for me.
Okay, so in the interest of time, let's just move on. We'll go, you're up for first town garage, and then highway, and then public.
On garages, which, last page, isn't it?
Page
Town
5.
garage building.
Bottom of page 5, up to 6.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't see anything in the garage itself that seemed out of whack.
Fuel, the fuel is going down. Is that, aren't fuel prices going up?
Well, they're starting to now. When we did the budget, they weren't.
Right. So should that get an edit?
Well, I mean, this current year, we're probably gonna have extra in there because the buses were running less and stuff like that because of the way school was running. The school runs full-time next year. If they do at-home learning, that'll, I don't know what their plans are yet. But, we get reimbursed for this fuel from them, so this pays out first, and then get whatever they use and the fire department use gets reimbursed. Yeah, I don't.
You okay
I'm
about
not
that?
sure. I don't think the reimbursement's showing these lines because like 2 years ago it was 46,000. Whether the reimbursements came back after the budget was finalized, I don't know.
Okay.
These numbers in the salary, Rick, they represent John Lindsay's position coming off the rolls and then being filled with someone else at the same level, or?
It's currently at the position's at the same level as if he was still here.
Okay. But the anticipation, I guess where I'm going is, are you anticipating someone to fill those hours? Or, I mean, you mentioned it before that you were anticipating it. Is it enough, I guess is my question. Or is it too much, depending on?
The only there's two positions within the department by contract, so we have to budget for that position at that rate.
Okay, so we're obligated until next negotiations, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're opening negotiations now for the next probably 3 or 4 years, but it's either a CDL or non-CDL position. That's the only two that we have, so.
Yep.
Right now, that's budgeted as non-CDL. There's a possibility I may come to the board and ask them to change it to a CDL and reduce somewhere else in the budget lines there to make up for the difference.
The budget line below or within the salary?
Well, I have money in there for part-time help from time to time.
You
So I
mean,
will cut back on that if we.
what line is that?
It's in the regular salaries line.
Oh, it's in the
Built
salaries
into
line.
it.
I see what you mean. And so what is that number? That's your part-time help?
Between the
is?
two positions, CDL and non-CDL, there's a $9,800 difference per year within the budget. That's not what they actually make, but
It would
that's
be, I'm sorry.
budgeting all the proposed overtime or projected overtime or snow removal stuff. So if I talked to the selectmen about doing that, then we would remove the part-time salary lines to make up for it.
And I guess I'm just trying to understand how much is that part-time salary line?
I believe we have 30,000. I'm not the exact number. It's like half a year's salary for one of the guys. So it's right around 30,000.
But there's an advantage, is there not, for part-time? Because then you're not paying all full salary on it, are you?
Yeah,
No,
if
you're
you
not.
can find the part-time people that are
Have you been able to, for the most part, or not?
very little. I use
Okay.
some, once in a while to help out when we're grading or something like that. Or we haven't had anybody come in for mowing or anything like that. Jerry's pretty much taken over all of that and done it
Yeah.
himself in the past year. So.
Okay. And you talked about hired equipment before, I got that. Oil, we got that. Sweeping, same sort of thing. Did you lay a lot of sand this year? I would imagine you did.
We used a lot of materials up that we had there because we couldn't get any for the last like 3 weeks. Now we have been pretty much, all of a sudden they delivered stuff again. But the state ran into a problem with them closing one yard and salt yard in the state. So everybody tried to get out of one place in New Haven. And when you double the number of trucks, you don't get too many delivered. So luckily we had some stuff on hand we could use until we got new stuff. But
I just need to.
there will be.
Sorry. No, finish your thought.
Go ahead.
I just need to do a little bit of housekeeping. Joyce has to go off for the sewer meeting. Joyce, we keep this Zoom open if you go on to the other.
No, I'm trying to get Barbara to be the co-host on the sewer one so she can open that one, but I'm having a technical difficulty, but keep going. I'm trying to do a workaround.
All right, I'm good.
The lighting, any particular reason why that's going down 10%, which is a good thing?
Well, we did switch over to all LED streetlights a few years ago, so.
So there is savings there that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 previous fiscal years that show on this that it was lower than the 10 we had in there, so and that 9,600 is a projection for this year. I would assume it may be lower than that, but town water is pretty much defined by the water company by number of hydrants, number of feet of pipe, the size of the pipe. There's no meter on that part of it. It's all just a yearly number that they decide what it's going to be.
And tree work, you're just anticipating,
Well, the number of trees are dying, so
right?
I've added a few more days into the budget.
What are those, the ash?
What was that?
Are those all those ash trees that are,
Well, they're all, yeah, they're dying, but others are dying also, not just the ash. So we've added it. That's the difference there is $3,000. That's 2 days or 4,000. So 2.5 days. Or
okay. Leah went downstairs to put a walker on the front steps. Just checking in to see if you're back.
I have Stan here. If you want him to come in, he can sit at my chair if you have any questions for him.
He was a 0 increase. I didn't have any questions.
Starts on line 359.
Chris, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. It's pretty straightforward.
So you don't need him?
I think we're good.
No, we're good, thank you.
Is Leah back? Leah, are you back?
So we have anything else after Leah?
Transfer station.
Can we go through that?
Yeah. One thing that we need to add is for phone, we're going to put a basic landline in over there.
Okay.
I don't know if Joyce has a number for that. It's like $30 a month, right?
That's what he was told me. He was supposed to send me an email with an actual confirmation. I haven't received it yet, but.
Okay. So we're talking $360. But we're actually going to the town hall, right?
Right, correct.
Okay. And Leah, if you're back, by all means.
I have to step for a second.
Leah lost her signal. She was re-entering herself.
Okay.
I'm going to sign off this meeting so that I can go open the sewer commission meeting.
Thanks, Barbara.
anytime.
You can sit down here.
You sure?
You're Rick Osborne now.
Hi, I'm Rick.
So we can actually hear you in the other room. I can hear you in your office too.
Yeah, it just kicked me out part way and then it all went to psych. It's just a mess. Anyway, here
Okay.
I am.
Hi.
Hopefully I didn't use inappropriate language to describe Zoom.
No, you're good.
We would understand it.
So, social services.
I kept my budget flat.
I can see that. Thank you for that work.
And you have there's a decrease for the senior center. Is that anticipated decrease in usage? It's just,
Well, you know, it's COVID. So it's I have no idea when it'll be able to open up safely and
Yeah.
resume both the nutrition program and any other programming. So I just really just sort of left it be. But that also, I don't know, I think Joyce must be at her next meeting, but I don't know if that reflects also the use of the building. I don't know if some of that is in there also or not. You know, obviously the building's been closed, so there's been no activities in that space. That's a rental space for the town. So I'm hoping with better weather, maybe we could do something outside. In the past, I have joined forces with the library to do other programming for seniors, like Medicaid, signing up for Medicare and that kind of thing. Thank you. So, you know, it just really depends. It's a small space. If we did open, we'd have to limit how many helpers or volunteers are in the kitchen. We'd have to limit, I can't say more than maybe 4 people in the big room space. So, and at this point, any extra time, well, I wouldn't even call it extra, has been sucked up by the food bank.
Right.
The food bank is crazy busy. It's always been work intensive, but now it's really busy.
So you've had what, 100+ percent increase?
Yeah. We always ran with like 40, but on a given week, we'd see maybe 26 households, because I go by households. Individual numbers were now up to over 100 individuals that benefit from the food bank. But now every week, pretty much everybody comes. So
understanding the tie in there, the food bank is run by, it's not run by the town, is it?
it's overseen and coordinated by the town, and the town allows the space. The monetary funds for the food bank is, they're all donated.
All private, right?
Yeah,
Right.
all
Okay.
private donations. The Kent Community Fund pays our bills at Connecticut Food Bank. So that's not a cost to the town. The only cost to the town is my assistance and my time spent and use of the space.
So my questions along the lines of budgeting is there anything you see specific to your duties and your assistant's duties at the food bank that would require anything other than your time, but an expenditure from the town vis-a-vis a budget line?
I don't think so. This place is amazing.
It runs well, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I just have to think it seems. Sometimes I put out the word that we're getting low on food or things. It always appears. I mean, the monetary donations for food purchases have just been over the top. And we've tried to take advantage of every single USDA, food pickup or anything that comes from the government way. Sometimes it's pretty disgusting, so we kind of edit a little bit of it. But one way or another, we've been able to keep it in operation all the way through COVID.
And one of
fairness to you and Debbie, with COVID, you're dealing with a ton more food, which logistics, unfortunately it doesn't come in tidy, broken up you know, 100 tidy broken up bags of groceries. You guys are parsing, organizing it, bringing it in, and then, you know, parsing it back out so that people can walk away. Basically, they're walking away with a bag or however many of groceries. Just,
Yeah.
Chris, you have some visibility on that. So
Yeah,
what
we've tried to increase how much food we provide as much as we can. In the beginning, it was scary. I mean, I think I've talked to you guys about this before, but because the grocery stores were really tapped and the warehouses were tapped, so it wasn't easy to acquire food. And the central warehouses like Connecticut Food Bank and Food Share were really low on stock. So, but it was the restaurant, you wouldn't believe. I mean, the Fife and Drum, Kazi Pizza. I mean, all those people stepped up to the plate, you know? They really, really did. I mean, it was really just phenomenal how much assistance there was.
Well, we appreciate all your efforts and all their efforts. I think that's great. The assistance line, it's been pretty much, you know, we just stepped it up a little bit. Can you just delve into that a little bit as to what, one, what it covers, and two, anticipating in the times that we're in now, if there's anything again?
It pretty much covers any kind of basic need. I did not change it or increase it, which, you know, I could have, I suppose, but really I have so many pots that are around of money that I can go to for similar type of assistance. It's really around basic needs. So it's, you know, it could be anything from a medical bill, unexpected childcare, rent, mortgage, utilities, car repairs, those kinds of things. So, and the Kent Community Fund has really stepped up with that too, helping people. They've increased their amount that they normally offer. Berkshire Taconic and Northwest Cog's Neighbor to Neighbor Fund has stepped up and is offering usually they have a cap. Those caps have all gone up because they realize that the difference is people aren't coming for a couple $100 short on their rent. They're coming for a whole month's rent, sometimes 2 months rent. Right. So it's kind of a whole different ballgame, and in terms of the amount that people need in order to kind of get themselves on better footing, even if it's just for a little while.
Thank you. I'm good.
Thanks, Leah.
Okay.
So we the Board of Selectmen cover the senior center, right? And that looks like it's decreased, clearly.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
Yep, I know. Yeah. Welcome Center bathroom.
We talked about, you know, at the last couple of meetings.
Yep. Is there anything else, any other department that we need to cover that's here?
No, I don't think so. I think transfer station will just keep as is with the addition of putting the phone,
Putting the what? It's hard to hear you.
Say that again?
I didn't hear you. It's getting a little feedback from it.
Oh, sorry. Leaving the transfer station where it is. The addition of glass is no additional charge.
What line is the transfer station? I can't seem to find that.
Page 8.
Page 8.
That 518.
I got it. Thank you very much. And so, what was your question?
Last weekend, the glass source separation container came online. It was delivered midweek, and we started having people put their glass in, separated out into that. And because it's a pilot program, the director of HRRA has been able to make it so that there's no additional fees for that. And removing that from the commingle is you know, not only for the environment, but taking that out is a huge piece. And also out of the municipal solid waste because we pay, what did you say, Rick? $88 a ton for municipal solid waste, but we pay $10 for commingle, so per ton. So encouraging people to get that out of municipal solid waste will eventually, over time will save us money on the MSW.
Okay.
But for right now, it's not costing anything. I think that's all I have.
The only other question I had with the transfer station, I asked this before, the salary, does that make sense, given the fact, I mean, I just have no experience as to whether that's market rate and we're attracting anybody from what we're advertising right now.
That's market rate for both positions based on what the position is at as far as hours. They all,
Okay.
at Brookfield, they have their,
Yeah, that's different though.
it's
Okay.
not really apples to apples, but
Okay.
the size of the town and the usage and all that.
Thank you.
And this, we don't have to have today's conversation, but our bulky waste fee schedule hasn't changed since like 2009. We might want to consider in the next few months just re-looking at that to see if that fee structure makes sense. And that's on the revenue side. And then also this year, I think because of COVID mostly, we've had a number of situations where people have they're either renting short-term because they're building a house and they've moved out of their current house. So they need, they need to use the transfer station. One woman, I think she needed to use it for like 3 weeks. So we just prorated it and helped her out. But there is nothing built into the process to be able to do that. It's sort of,
Right.
which would be better not to have to deal with it on a piecemeal basis, but we can talk about that. That it won't affect the budget.
Okay.
So, unless, I'm just looking at the chat, sorry. Anything else?
No, it looks like we've gone over everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Maybe if Ed is at the 6:30, maybe we will spend a little bit of time.
It's coming on now.
Oh, well. Nothing you can do about it. I think Lily and I have a meeting at 5, so we do
So,
be able to prep for that.
so just going back to the one thing we talked about before was the town hall telephone line. Is that something we can bump to next year, or at least?
Yeah, we had removed.
So we did remove it?
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
That was, what was that coming out of that line, Joyce? 51 or?
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make that. And we upped litigation, correct?
Yeah.
So, all right. So, is there a way we can get a
Yeah, Barbara.
updated version? So, I mean, mine's so marked up at this point.
Yep.
That would be great. And then
I don't know. I don't think we'll have it for 6:30, but I'll go out and check with Barbara.
No, she's on the sewer meeting right now, so probably not.
Yeah, that's.
But for point of clarification, you talked about things. So like, not to bring it up again, but what number do you want put in the emergency management line? And And what are you going to do about those 5% salary increases? You talked about it a lot, but I don't have a final number to tell Barbara.
Well, on the civil emergency management, I'm inclined just to keep it as I said, at that existing level. And then I think, my feeling on the salary is, an increase or the request on the increase from the planning and zoning department. I would not be in favor of that. I would say that we keep it in line with everybody else with the COLA increase that I referred to.
I agree with you on the 3% for this part of the conversation. I do think that emergency management, civil preparedness needs something more than what's not even going to be able to fund the one thing the one tool that they need, and gives no support to the emergency response team.
All right, well, Ed, you got to go off mute.
I thought this meeting had been canceled. That's why when I read the other thing, I thought it canceled till tonight's meeting.
Yeah, I was I was at a loss too. I thought it was a little bit later too, but that's my fault.
I'm sorry. Yeah, because I was planning. I said, "Oh, our regular meeting 1 to 3 must have gotten canceled," and so I just saw it on the other one. So I figured I'd come on and say, just so you know, I agree with you on the emergency management. I think we should hold it the way it was at this point in time till they can give us some more answers and how it operates. And like I said, I apologize for coming in late. I could have been on, but I thought it canceled the way I read it. So,
well, most of the discussion, Ed, just a recap, has been centered around the emergency services. Some discussion with respect to the Chromebooks at planning and zoning.
Yeah,
we might we'll do a workaround on that. I think just Jean and I were very much in favor of technologically moving forward and streamlining things that the department is trying to do, but they're going to try it in a different way, and hopefully that will work and be a model maybe for everyone else to be able to do that who use those kind of systems.
okay.
Salary request specifically from planning and zoning.
I heard that discussion.
I'm sorry?
I agree with you. I think we should hold it for this year.
Okay. And Jean, what else did I miss?
I don't think anything else.
That was sort of significantly discussed. I think
there was the Park and Rec, and the commission had recommended $7,000 to hire a part-time hourly worker to do park maintenance, and there was discussion that it would be better spent on a contract, contracting out, because that person would now need to be supervised. They don't have any equipment or supplies to enable that person to do that, do the work of a park maintenance person. And so for this year, while it'll give them the opportunity to see what, see how that's going to flesh out and what the needs really truly are, and then, take a look at it next year for.
Did they ever do weren't they supposed to do a full park and rec survey? Wasn't someone going to do one a year ago or 2 years ago or something on their whole assessment of the parks and the whole thing? Did that ever get completed?
They were working on a master plan.
Right.
Chris, that was, I think it was 2019.
I'm sorry to be late, but I don't know. I was just wondering, that might be something we need to ask for, because I haven't seen it, so.
Yeah,
I don't think it's finished.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay. Put on hold when when the pandemic came down the pike.
So this is the $7,000 an increase to their line that they're looking for?
So we're actually recommending that it go from, sorry, I just lost my place. Go from line 023102, where they put it in at hourly employees, and just shift it down to 023419 to park maintenance, because the work still needs to be done. But Chris and I agreed that it made more sense just from logistics to have them contracted out, like they contract out the tree truck and other things.
Okay.
I think that was it. Yeah, the attorney fees we bumped up to 25,000.
Yep.
Just doing a quick swing through. I think that was it.
And we'll be back at 6:30, correct then?
We'll be back at 6:30 for the regular meeting.
Okay.
And there was like one little tweak in registrar of voters for their supply line, but that was it.
Yeah, I understand that. Yep.
Yep, I think that was it.
Okay.
It is 4:14. Unless Chris, Brad, do you have other thoughts, we'll adjourn.
So the next budget meeting is Friday at 4, is that correct?
That is accurate.
Yep.
Okay.
So at that point, we will have cleaned up versions.
Mhm.
I'm sorry?
Yes, yep. You'll probably have it before then,
Oh, that would be great.
but for discussion, I'm quite sure you'll have it before then for discussion on Friday.
Okay, see you later.
4:15, Joyce, just.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.